Welcome to this week's Workplace series. What if one of the best things that you could do to lift productivity is to actually stop being productive every minute of the day? Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but in workplaces where we're obsessed with busyness and speed and output, we've confused activity with effectiveness. That confusion is costing us. Now, you don't have to look too far to see conversations about productivity. We've got governments talking about it, economists debating the best way to uplift productivity. We've got organizations talking about it. And the usual assumption is quite simple: more hours, more effort, more output. But there's another side to this conversation that often doesn't get enough attention, and that's the human side. Because productivity isn't just an economic measure, it's also the output of our human energy, our focus, our judgment, our creativity. And those things don't improve when our brains are constantly wired and overloaded. The more we avoid rest in the pursuit of productivity, the less productive we can often become. When we push through that fatigue, we skip breaks, we cram in our diaries, and we treat always on as being a badge of honor, our thinking will narrow. We can often become more reactive. We miss those important signals. We rely on shortcuts, and ultimately we make poorer decisions. Now, we might be thinking that we're working harder, but we're certainly not working better. Deliberate rest isn't wasted time. It's actually brain building time. Your brain isn't idle when you're daydreaming or walking or showering or just staring out the window. In those moments, the brain is activating what neuroscientists call the default mode network. And that network is crucial because what it's doing is helping you connect ideas. It's making sense of experiences. It's looking and seeing those patterns and imagining possibilities. In other words, some of your best thinking doesn't happen when you're forcing your brain to perform. It happens when your brain has that bit of space. Think about it. That's why ideas often arise when you're in the shower, when you're walking or driving or doing something that is relatively undemanding. That insight, it's not random. Your brain has finally had time, space, room to join those important dots together. So what does brain rest actually do? First, it restores focus. Attention, it's finite. You can't concentrate deeply all day without recovery. Short breaks help to replenish your thinking capacity. Second, it fuels creativity. Those breakthrough ideas, they often emerge after a period of rest, incubation. You step away from the task, and when you come back to it, you can think and approach it differently. Third, it improves decision making. When you're tired, your brain is going to take a shortcut. It takes the path of least resistance. That's when you're going to be more likely to default to what is familiar rather than to think deeply and think strategically. Yet when you're rested, you're better able to weigh up those options, manage the trade-offs, think long-term, think differently. So the challenge with all of this, it's not just to rest more, but it's also to design work so that brains can perform at their best. And that includes the brains of your team members. So there's three things. You want to model it, codify it, and then reinforce it. When you model it, you're showing your team what matters. If you're sending emails in the middle of the night, you're telling your team that, hey, taking a break is risky. So you want to protect that focus time. Take breaks. Show your team that recovery is part of high performance. Then you want to codify it. So talk to your team. Agree on how you're going to work together, your meeting norms, how you're going to protect time for deep work, your expectations around notifications, response times, and after-hour communications. Don't leave this to chance. And then lastly, you want to reinforce it. And that's about celebrating the outcomes, not celebrating exhaustion. Celebrate when the team has removed unnecessary meetings or that you've made better decision because there was time to think. Celebrate those projects that avoided rework because people actually had space and time to challenge assumptions early. Now, I know there's going to be skeptics out there going, oh, we don't have time for breaks. But the question is to actually say, well, do you have time not to? Because the cost of poor decisions, that rework, the slow thinking, the burnout is far greater than the minutes you think you're saving by continuing just to push through. Now, this isn't about turning work into a wellness retreat, but it is about managing the system that converts the human energy and attention into the results that matter. That's a performance strategy. So this week, a couple of things to challenge yourself on. Where is busyness in your team being mistaken for value? Secondly, where does your team need more deep thinking time and space? And next, what's one meeting, habit, or expectation you could redesign to protect that attention? Because strategic idleness, it's not laziness. When it's used wisely, it can be a really powerful productivity tool. Take care. I'll see you next week.